Let me make this clear before I continue. I never sold my soul. Yes, I entered their meetings. Yes, I wore their ring. Yes, I stood in their rituals. But deep inside me, I refused to bow. And the day I finally said no, that was the day everything in my life exploded. That moment came for me the day they gave me their final instruction. They told me the ring was not enough. The rituals were not enough. Wearing their spiritual chains was not enough. Now I had to do something for the Brotherhood, a task that would activate my loyalty.
They told him, if you want to make it in football, you must bow to the system. They offered him fame, contracts, and millions, but there was a price, his soul. He was taken inside a world most footballers will never speak about publicly, a world where talent is not enough, where accord contracts are signed in secrecy, and spiritual sacrifices are exchanged for success. But he refused. They tried to bury him, but he survived to expose the truth. And this is the story of how he refused to sell his soul to the secret society, as you may call it.
You see, there comes a moment in every man's life when silence becomes a grave, when choosing peace means choosing death, and when the only way to survive is to stand alone. Uncle J called me to a private apartment in London. No introductions this time. No fake smiles. Just a table and a small black envelope. Inside was a photo of a person I knew, someone close to me. Someone who trusted me. Someone innocent. Someone I cared about. My assignment was simple. Offer a soul to the order. I stared at the picture for a long time, hoping it was a sick joke. Hoping this wasn't real. But then he said, power must be fed. Everyone at the top pays the price. It's your turn. I pushed the picture back to him and said, I didn't sign up for this. He leaned in, and for the first time since I met him, he dropped the mask. You think you still have a choice. You crossed the line the moment you entered the room of the chosen. You are marked. And those who are marked must serve. I removed the ring and placed it on the table. That was my rebellion. That was my last day as a man who lived in peace. But let me take you back to how it all started for me. I never imagined my life would take the turn it did. I grew up in a Muslim home, raised with discipline, prayer, and respect. Football was my dream from the very beginning. I believed if I worked hard, stayed focused, and trusted Allah, one day I would make it. And by His mercy, I did. I became a professional footballer in the UK. I had finally made it out of the struggles, out of the street life, out of the life people said I would never escape. But what nobody tells you is this: fame has a door. And behind that door is a world most people are not ready to face. A world controlled by people who smile at you in public but serve something else in private. It all started the day I signed my big contract. I won't mention the club name, that's not important. What matters is that signing changed everything around me. Suddenly I was moving with people I never knew existed, men in expensive suits who didn't smile. Women who whispered more than they spoke, and agents who always had a way of making you feel like you owed them your soul. At first, I thought it was just the politics of football. The pressure, the media, the critics, the performance demands. I thought this was normal for players who make it. But there was a spiritual side to this game, unseen, hidden, and controlled by forces that have nothing to do with the creator. It began with a man I thought was sent to help me. Let's just call him Uncle J. He came into my life as a mentor. He said he wanted to guide me, protect me from fake friends, and help me grow my career. He spoke like a caring father, full of advice, always saying things like, in this industry, you need power to survive. I didn't really understand what he meant until I realized he was not talking about talent, fitness, or discipline. He was talking about spiritual power. He introduced me to a circle, men who controlled business, entertainment, influence, and power in Europe and Africa. They never called it a cult. They never mentioned anything spiritual. They simply called it a network. At first, I saw nothing wrong with it. They were rich. They were influential. They were connected. Who wouldn't want that? But slowly, things stopped feeling normal. One night I was invited to a private gathering, not a party, not a celebration. Something else. A ceremony. It took place in a mansion outside the city. Phones were not allowed inside. Everyone dressed in black. And at the entrance, our names were checked, not for security, but permission. Permission to enter a room I should never have stepped into. Inside, the air felt heavy, like the atmosphere itself was watching me. There were symbols on the walls I had never seen before. Some men stood in silence. Others were chanting something I didn't understand. There was a long table covered in black cloth, and on it lay strange objects, candles, knives, stones, and a bowl filled with something dark and sticky. Blood, I later realized. I froze. Every muscle in my body told me to walk away. But then I saw familiar faces, people I knew from the football world. Top names. Names you see on TV. Men I respected. Men I thought were blessed by God. And they were there, wearing the same black robes, and holding candles like this was normal. In that moment, I realized this was not success. This was initiation. But I was already inside. And once you enter that room, you don't walk out the same. When I walked into that mansion, I thought it was just another elite gathering, rich businessmen, influential people, silent deals behind closed doors. But what I saw that night made me understand one hard truth. The football industry is not controlled by talent. It's controlled by altars. From that night, Uncle J stopped pretending. He no longer used words like network, opportunity, or connection. He called it what it was, a brotherhood. A spiritual alliance. A system where power flows from darkness and those who submit rise quickly. I asked him why I was brought there. His answer was simple: because you are chosen. You have the star. But a star not backed by power will eventually fall. He said footballers who rise without protection are destroyed, injuries, sudden scandals, depression, contract sabotage, media disgrace. He said these things weren't coincidences, they were rituals of elimination. Spiritual attacks used to remove those who refused to join them. And then he said something that shook me deeply: nobody becomes a legend in this world without alignment. He didn't need to say alignment with what? I already knew. He told me football is spiritual. The entertainment industry is spiritual. Politics is spiritual. Business is spiritual. Nothing moves at the top unless it is powered by something. And those who refuse the system disappear. I started paying attention to patterns. And I saw it myself: teammates who were rising suddenly destroyed by mysterious injuries. Players who had no business being at the top suddenly becoming world-class overnight. Others who had everything: talent, passion, hard work, yet kept failing, like something was blocking them. The truth is, I thought all of this was conspiracy until I attended a second gathering. This one was held in a private underground hall beneath a famous hotel. It wasn't a party, no alcohol, no music, just a hall full of men in robes seated in perfect silence. At the center was a symbol drawn on the floor, something like a circle with writings around it, and a star-like pattern inside. This time, I was asked to participate, not just observe. A man standing beside me leaned in and whispered, "Tonight you will be assigned. You will receive what belongs to you." Assigned. What does that even mean? That night I finally understood why I was there. Not because I was talented, but because I was useful to their system. Because millions of young black men looked up to me. Because stadiums full of people would one day chant my name. Because those who control influence control souls. Uncle J later revealed the truth: footballers are not just players. They are spiritual gateways. Through you, we enter nations. That was the night fear truly entered my heart. I wanted to walk away, but how do you walk away from people who monitor your every move? Who already knew your family, your weaknesses, your bank accounts, your habits? Who already had your blood because they took it the first night I entered their mansion under the pretense of a medical check? You don't walk away. You pretend to follow. That was the beginning of my bondage. The first demand didn't come in a dramatic way. There was no movie-style threat, no men in black chasing me, no violent intimidation. That would have been easier to fight. Instead, it came as a kind request: that's how they get you. Uncle J invited me to what he called a small alignment meeting. He said it was standard for anyone joining the circle to seal unity. I was taken to a private house just outside London. This time, the meeting was only for men. No robes. No chanting. No candles. Just a dining table. The man seated at the head of the table was someone I recognized instantly. He was a well-known public figure. A man praised for charity. A man invited to speak at international conferences. A man who had been on the cover of magazines with titles like Leader of the Future and Voice of Hope. But his eyes told another story. Cold. Empty. Measured. He didn't bother to introduce himself. He only said, "Welcome to the path. Power must circulate. Nothing is free." Then he placed a small black box on the table. When he opened it, I saw a ring, silver, heavy, engraved with a symbol I didn't recognize. He told me wearing it was a bond of alignment, a spiritual contract of loyalty. I told him I needed time to think. He smiled. "You have already begun. Remember the first night you already offered your blood. This is just acknowledgement." My heart froze. How did I not see it? That night at the mansion, they scanned our fingers, took a drop of blood, and stamped it on a form. They said it was a security clearance. But it wasn't. That was the first ritual, the blood covenant. And now, this ring would seal it. I hesitated. He leaned closer and said, "Refusing is acceptable. Walking away is acceptable. But consequences still apply. Energy must be balanced. You already drew from the table. The table must draw from you." I didn't understand what he meant. Until he passed me a document. Inside was a printed sheet with details of my life. My mother's name. My younger brother's school. My bank details. My agent's address. Even private voice notes from my phone, things no one should have had. They collected everything. That wasn't a warning. It was control. I slipped the ring on not because I wanted to, but because I realized I was already trapped. That night something changed inside me. I could feel it, not physically, but spiritually. It was like I had opened myself up and something unseen stepped in. My dreams changed. My thoughts changed. My desires changed. Suddenly, I began wanting things I never cared about: dominance, pleasure, women, money, control, things that never satisfied. It was like hunger without end. They had activated spiritual manipulation. I was no longer thinking like myself. Something else was inside, toying with my emotions, pressing me toward darkness, pushing me further into the circle. And when spiritual control begins, it doesn't come with chains. It comes with cravings. That was the beginning of my fall. After I accepted the ring, everything moved quickly. It was as if they had been waiting for that single moment to claim me fully. Sometime later, I received a message with only 3 words: "Tonight. Be ready." No address. No explanation. Just a black car waiting outside my apartment exactly at midnight. The ride was silent. No one spoke. No one asked questions. These people never explained anything, you only learned by obeying. We drove for more than an hour outside the city. No street lights. No houses. Just an abandoned industrial area surrounded by trees. The building we entered looked like an old warehouse from the outside, but inside it was something else. The air was thick with incense. The walls were covered in symbols I had never seen before: circles, triangles, foreign letters, markings that seemed to pulse in the dim light. At the center of the hall was a large stone table, and around it stood men in long black garments. No faces. No words. Just presence. This was not a meeting. This was a ceremony. The moment I stepped inside, every instinct told me to run. But spiritually, I couldn't move. It was as if an invisible force held me in place. Uncle J touched my shoulder and whispered, "Whatever happens tonight, do not speak. Do not ask questions. Do not resist." In front of the stone table stood a man I had never seen before. Older. Tall. Eyes that did not blink. When he began to speak, his voice didn't sound human, it was deep, layered, like more than one voice was speaking inside him. He didn't introduce himself or give a welcome message. He simply said, "Tonight the new gate is opened. Power requires loyalty. Loyalty demands sacrifice." Before I could process those words, two men brought forward a black goat, alive, struggling. They held it down on the stone table. The man with the layered voice didn't use a knife, he used his bare hands. In one horrifying movement, he broke the animal's neck and blood poured over the stone. No one flinched. No one reacted. No one prayed. No one asked why. This was normal for them. A bowl was placed before me, filled with blood. The man turned to me and said, "Covenant must be sealed. Drink." I froze. Something inside me screamed no. But my body wouldn't move. I didn't want to do it, but it felt like my will was no longer my own. I lifted the bowl with shaking hands, then just before it touched my lips, he grabbed my wrist. Then he smiled and said something I will never forget, "Not yet. We already own you. Tonight, we claim your voice." He dipped his finger into the blood and marked it across my tongue. Fire shot through my body. I don't mean spiritual fire. I mean pain, a violent burning in my throat, my stomach, my bones. I fell to the ground shaking. My ears started ringing. My eyes went black. And then, I saw them. Not physically, but spiritually, beings. Watching us. Surrounding the ceremony. Their shapes were like men, but not men. Their eyes were red, not glowing, but burning. These were not demons from movies, and no horns, and no tails. They were ancient, intelligent, and wicked beyond imagination. And they were waiting, as if something had been given to them. That was the night I knew this was not a brotherhood. This was an altar. And I had been bound. When I woke up, I was back in the car. A box was on my lap. Inside it, bracelets, chains, charms, items I was instructed to wear before every match, interview, or contract signing. These were not fashion. These were tokens, the access points that allowed them to control me spiritually. My life no longer belonged to me. That's when I finally understood, these people don't recruit you. They own you. Yes, like I said, I never sold my soul. Yes, I entered their meetings. Yes, I wore their ring. Yes, I stood in their rituals. But deep inside me, I refused to bow. And the day I finally said no, that was the day everything in my life exploded. You see, there comes a moment in every man's life when silence becomes a grave. When choosing peace means choosing death. And when the only way to survive is to stand alone. That moment came for me the day they gave me their final instruction. They told me the ring was not enough. The rituals were not enough. Wearing their spiritual chains was not enough. Now I had to do something for the brotherhood, a task that would activate my loyalty. That was the word they used to activate, like I was some machine they had built. Uncle J called me to a private apartment in London. No introductions this time. No fake smiles. Just a table and a small black envelope. Inside was a photo of a person I knew, someone close to me. Someone who trusted me. Someone innocent. Someone I cared about. My assignment was simple. Offer a soul to the order. I stared at the picture for a long time, hoping it was a sick joke. Hoping this wasn't real. But then he said, power must be fed. Everyone at the top pays the price. It's your turn. I pushed the picture back to him and said that I didn't sign up for this. He leaned in, and for the first time since I met him, he dropped the mask. You think you still have a choice? You crossed the line the moment you entered the room of the chosen. You are marked. And those who are marked must serve. I removed the ring and placed it on the table. That was my rebellion. That was my last day as a man who lived in peace. But let me take you back to how it all started for me. From that day, my contract renewal collapsed mysteriously, my close relationships fell apart, my health changed overnight, I began losing strength, sleep, and peace. Tragedy started following people around me. Everywhere I went, I was being watched. They didn't have to touch me physically, they attacked everything around me. I knew what they wanted: fear. They wanted me to run back to them, beg them for protection, accept the contract again. But I refused. And that made me dangerous, because no one is allowed to leave them. No one walks away from that circle. Either you return, or you disappear. That was the beginning of spiritual war in my life. And I have fought till now.
Family, what you just heard is not a movie. It is not a conspiracy theory. This is real spiritual warfare, taking place in real time in our world. A man who reached the top discovered the truth. Not all success is from God. Not every blessing is clean. Some contracts come from altars. And the price of saying a no to darkness is war. But hear me clearly, it is better to fight for your soul than to lose it quietly. Chapter 2 will expose everything they came after him, spiritually and physically. The attacks increased. And what they did to weaken him, you must hear it yourself. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Do you believe most celebrities and top people today are being powered by dark altars, yes or no? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you're following the series. Subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss chapter 2. Share this story, someone you know needs to hear this truth. Type, I choose light over darkness, if you're standing against evil altars in your generation.